Welcome to this week's SIIA Tech Chats. I am joined by Rhonda Wunderlin, who is VP of Performance Marketing at Penton Media. Penton's an information services and marketing company. Rhonda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Now let's jump right in. Working in the media space, you've experienced this transition from print to digital. Can you talk about your experience with this transition and how are media companies adapting?
It's been an interesting journey. So my background actually isn't in media, so I've jumped into this space about five and a half years ago. And I think that was when print was really starting to get hit hard. And I think the first reaction was for people to think about format, like, okay, I need to build an iPad app to support my print content. And then it was like, okay, we need to actually produce, smaller pieces of content, snack bite sizes of contents instead of long form. And then it was like, okay, we have to actually, which was a big change for editors, produce content like every day, fresh new content. It's not a magazine that comes out once a month. So I think that's kind of where things started to shift in how organizations were responding. But then I think it's really become the what and how you do it. It's kind of like if you think about how digital has impacted retail in the way that we shop, it's really given the buyer, more control. And I think that's happening in media too. They have more options. And so they are really more in control. And so I think, as media companies continue through this transformation, it's really about being where your users are when they're there and giving them the information they need when they're looking for it.
Yeah, so speaking about buyers being in control, in our digital world, marketers ourselves have had to change our focus to focus on the individual interests of our customers, knowing exactly what they're looking for, right? Can you talk about shifting your marketing strategy from understanding just who the customers are to now understanding exactly what they're looking for?
Yeah, sure. It does go a little bit to, the marketing technologies that you use, but I think it, more on the business side, it starts with the relationship you're developing with somebody, and that's at the very beginning of that relationship. And so when you first acquire a new reader, a new customer, a prospect that could potentially become a customer, I think it's important that you're upfront about your communication, frequency and methods, making sure you provide them that preference center to let you know when and how often they want to be communicated to. And so once you kind of establish the beginning of that relationship, it's monitoring that engagement and behavior. So then you can, when you do send them communications, you can be more relevant. All the way from, that they visited your website and the content that they read or looked at was on this topic, and therefore they're going to be interested in a communication about a webinar or a white paper on the same topic. So I really think, that transition, making it easier as well for the user to engage with you. Not every time they come to, participate in a webinar, look at content where they have to fill out a form with 500 fields, whether it's pre-population or really understanding who they are so they don't have to ever see that form again. They can have access to your content. I think those are things that are really important to establishing that cadence and communication, again, based on what's relevant to that individual.
Well, you touched a little bit on the importance of your technologies in gaining that insight into your customer, and of course, you need to invest in the right Marcom stack, right? Can you give any advice for one, making the investment case for the technology, but also how to go about putting those right tools together for you to gain that individual insight?
As far as making the case, I think it's easier, definitely much easier today than it was 10 years ago when like marketing automation and those platforms first started surfacing. I say it's easier because I think there's a lot more data out there that supports the use case. That data that really shows, I can't think of stats off the top of my head right now, but that really shows when you can be more relevant, you can actually keep someone engaged for longer periods of time, being able to have the analysis to track that the life cycle of the customer or the journey they're going through when they engage with you. And so being able to do that with the right MarTech stack is really important. And I'm sure everybody's seen this image, this diagram that Chief MarTech, I think is the name of the organization that puts it out. And it's the MarTech landscape, and it has, all the different marketing technologies from advertising and promotions to content and experience to social and relationships, communication and sales and data, and then managing all those tools in your team. And it's funny. Do you know the graphic I'm talking about?
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
so they started, I think, about 6 or 7 years ago. And in 2012, which was just 5 years ago, there were 350 vendors and technologies on that image. And for 2017, there's 5,381. So it's kind of mind blowing. So it's really challenging. Like, where do you start and what technologies do you need that are going to move the needle for your organization? So I think it's really understanding what your goals and objectives are for your team to start, picking out the technologies that are going to really impact your ability to meet those goals and objectives. But even once you start determining which technologies are the right ones for your organization, I think the underlying key to making it work is the ability to integrate those technologies, and not having a bunch of technologies holding data and your user experience, has this experience with this technology, and then you're over here and there's data over here. So to be effective, you really, even though you're using different platforms, be able to connect those together to have that one view of the user. So you can continue to do the right message at the right time to the right person, that whole thing.
Yeah, they certainly need to talk to each other. So, Rhonda, finally, before I let you go, give us some insight. Where's the media market headed? What's it going to look like in the next 18 to 24 months?
I wish I knew. No, I do think it's going to continue to be, organizations are going to continue to really have to think about that multi-platform experience, and content integration, and how the platforms and the content integrate to create that seamless user experience. Whether somebody sees you on a social media channel, they get an email from you, they go to your website. I think it's really about creating that seamless experience that goes back to the right technologies that are integrated to enable that. So.
Well, Rhonda, thank you so much for taking the time to join us all the way from London today. For more information on Penton Media, please visit their website, and we'll be back next week on SA Tech Chat.